Um, um, hopefully my computer won't crash. But in fact, let me see if I can simultaneously record it to the cloud here. I'm not sure if I can, actually not sure if I can do that. But I think they'll, well, I'll record it on this computer too. Um, so let's see. But I hope everyone had a nice holiday and let's see my computer's like, let's see, it's like, oh, cancel. Well, I think we'll, hopefully we'll see how this goes. Yeah, thanks for joining everyone. I really hope everyone had a nice holiday season, and I'm just gonna share my screen here, and go over this. Uh, okay, so yeah, thanks for everyone for their participation. I show this slide a lot, but Happy New Year. I hope everyone had a nice festive holiday season. I think it's actually still the last day of Hanukkah because my building has a Hanukkah handle. So happy that and happy Kwanzaa and hope everyone had a Merry Christmas. That was a while back. And Prospero Año. Also, I'd like to pay tribute to Jimmy Carter because I actually I know Lynn went to see him once and I did too. And this was a long time ago. This was actually 26 years ago when I actually still had hair. So this is me. This is my mother.
Cool.
And and I went to see him teach Sunday school. Anyway, he was an amazing guy. He was actually a professor at Emory. So like we used to hear about him coming around and stuff like that. So I was sorry about that. And I don't like to brag on my own awards, but this is about the only award I've ever won. Is when I was a resident, like almost 20 years ago, my like fellow residents gave me the Jimmy Carter Southern Gentleman Award. So
Wow.
so that so
That's great.
that was at Mass
Yeah.
General Hospital. Like they had this long, I don't know, Lynn, you probably got a lot of these. She has real awards too. Lynn gets real awards, but I only get fake awards. But
Well, this is not fake. You definitely deserve this award, and I think it's a real award. And you are not the only Southern gentleman in our residency program,
yeah,
so you had some competition for this award. I
Yeah.
if I can mention my award, I got a Queen of the Kidney award.
Wonderful.
I have
Yeah.
it in
Line up, you're
my
running out there like
office.
this. We don't know what's what. Okay. We don't know what's the money on.
that's funny.
Oh,
Okay, okay.
our dean is talking.
Yeah, oh, okay. It looks like he's got a mask on everything. Wow. I'll mute him, but if, unless he wants to say something.
Mhm.
But it sounds like he's talking to the surgeon or something. Um, but anyway, but yeah, well, yeah, you definitely deserve that Queen of the Kidney award too. Um, yeah, I remember like, um, what was it? I remember like Dr. Colvin had a cake for you. It said something like Reign of the Rains or something like that. What was that? Queen of the Queen of the
Yes, that's what the award says.
yeah. So yeah,
Wow.
yeah. So
Cool.
yeah, again, thanks to everyone for their participation, and I really appreciate it. As I said, I didn't expect we would have many people today, but I'm just going to start going through the survey and get your advice. I want to mention that on January the 16th, in 2 weeks, Kim's going to have a great talk. So we'll try to publicize this, and people tend to come for these talks, so we'll probably
Yeah.
have more people. If you want to say,
So if I could just say
yeah,
something,
yeah.
you want to be on the right side of history, right? So we think 2025 is going to be a very active year, a lot of surprising things happening. And one of them could be xenograft clinical trials, right? You can all think of reasons that they'd be slow or not happen for a long time. But think of being on the right side of history, which means that they actually do happen in 2025. Your theory of science includes the fact that that could happen, that organized clinical trials in pig to human transplants could start soon this year. Yeah. So that's one of the things that we're going to talk about. And as you know, I have a published paper that predicts that AGI could begin as soon as September 2024. And in fact, in theory, that happened, right? The 1.0 model of OpenAI came out on September 12th, and the 3.0 model came out very recently, December 20th. And even if you don't think the 1.0 model is AGI, the evidence that the 3.0 model is much stronger. So I hope I've stimulated you to come here on the 16th and debate these issues and be on the right side of history, right? Not be a naysayer saying clinical trials in Xeno are never happening. And meanwhile, at the end of 2025, they're active and ongoing, and everybody's talking about them, and everybody's talking about how you predicted that they would never happen, right? Yeah. Okay, so
Yeah.
see you in 2 weeks.
Yeah, that'll be awesome. I really look forward to that talk. So let me share this again. I thought I'd get everyone's so on the 30th in 4 weeks, we'll continue this survey analysis. Like I said, I left it open until right before this meeting. So I haven't done like the formal analysis yet, but we're going to start walking through it. And I'd love to get your advice on how to proceed with that analysis. And then maybe after that, we'll start the Delphi process also that we've been talking about. And also, this survey was supposed to help guide, our survey to the larger community. So we're going to start building that too. In 6 weeks, we'll hear from Dr. or Andia Paul from Dr. Panaki Sardar's group. So look forward to that. And then at the end of February, we won't have a meeting because there's the Cutting Edge of Transplantation Conference. On the March 13th, we're going to leave that open and see how things are going. And then at the end of March is USCAP, so we're going to cancel for that also. So I'd just like to bring your attention to the two upcoming meetings. And Kim, I think is going to the CEO team, which is the Cutting Edge meeting. He welcomed everyone to go to that. I'm sure it'll be really interesting. And then USCAP at the end of March. Does anyone want to say anything about those things?
Well, the poster session also includes other areas. So it is leading the way to organ transplantation modernization, but also other exciting cutting edge areas. Yeah. So, and our poster, I think, is in one of those areas. So I hope to see many people there.
Yeah, awesome. Coming back to our aims of the Digital Pathology Working Group, as we've talked about before, our first aim is image bank and repository. So part of the survey was supposed to help address that again. And then the Banff and larger transplant community algorithms we want to develop. And I know a lot of groups are developing algorithms. We do have the grant with kitware that's ongoing. We want to involve the whole digital pathology working group. Dr. Kim Solez and Dr. Parmjeet Randhawa and also Dr. Wajia Zhang is part of that. On a formal basis, but eventually there's going to be phase 2, and I want to involve a lot more of you. I hope, I'm not in complete in charge of it. Kitware and Ashish Chaudhary is, but I definitely hope that we can involve more people in that regard. And so stay tuned on that. And that'll hopefully develop some algorithms. I know a lot of other people are developing algorithms. And then competitions and trials and challenges. We heard about that several weeks back, but basically the group in the Netherlands is really leading that effort. Joran van der Lack and Dominique van Midden have that ongoing with the sort of they call it the monkey trial now, and that's a challenge. It's one of these grand challenges. And you heard about that a few weeks ago. If you want to hear more, I can find that recording. And then there is a collaborative effort with them ongoing called the trial that's actually in our last paper. And then I'd like to mention the fourth sort of goal of our group is to rethink the innovation timeline. This is something that Kim had mentioned. Basically, we'd like to bring that forward and sort of continue to rethink the innovation timeline. I think he'll probably have some of that to mention in his talk in 2 weeks. So we'll wait. Well, we'll just move on. The benchmarking paper is something that we really want to start dealing with. And this survey is sort of like the goal of the survey was kind of to start looking at a benchmarking paper too. So I think that kind of brings us to the survey. And thanks to those who've completed it, it's now officially closed. So I'm going to share my screen and sort of show you the results. And again, like I say, this is a little bit like very preliminary. And like I said, in 4 weeks, I can have a more formal analysis of that. But let me just share the results so far. Let's see. Can you see that?
Yep.
So we had 21 responses. Actually, a couple of those are like I need to like weed out because I think a couple of them were people trying I think I like dummy data. So I need to make sure because one was just D. So I need to make sure, I think a couple of those I'm going to delete, but I think that's still good. We had, and these are only selected of you. I know Dr. Rajesh did it. This is only showing, unfortunately, I don't know why this only shows some. I can actually go to the spreadsheet and show you the whole results. I mean, actually, I can do that for you too. Yeah, here. So just to give you the full names, Dr. Rajesh and Dominique, and like I said, I'm there twice. So a couple of these will weed out, but overall, it's a good response. We had about 18 to 20 responses. So thank you to those who did that. And we're going to kind of use, obviously if a paper comes from this, all of you who participate is going to be, all of you did participate. It'll be, definitely part of the authorship on that. So the departments were mostly pathology. And again, I'll clean this up, but this is we had a variety of countries. As you can see, most of them were pathology departments. There was a surgery department, nephrology, and others, but basically most pathology, which is kind of in line with our past survey. We had all the same questions as our prior survey. Again, the countries were, actually it was pretty diverse, and there may have actually been as many from Canada as there were from the US. I'll do a formal analysis of that. So that comes to our, questions. And for each question, we actually asked, as you can recall, we asked, do you think this would be a good question for a general survey? So the first question was, do you have a computerized server that can manage whole slide images? And so the majority, and again, I think I'm still recounting, as you know, like we had an election in the US recently, and like some states were still counting for weeks after. So hopefully it won't be that bad. But we're still counting. So, but I think it looks pretty good that most participants do have a server that they can share. And they can share images. And basically, I think that should be a question for future surveys. Obviously, the average rating was a 4. And feel free to jump.
Brad,
Yeah, sure.
can I ask
Sure.
a question? just because if you can scroll up, and you were saying, um, do you have a server? Can you just go up to the
Sure,
question?
sure, 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 sure.
Do you have a server that can manage them, but from multiple institutions? And then you were saying to share images, and that's a different, so I'm not really sure what your point is. Are you trying to ask, like, do you scan slides and have the scanned slides stored, or what are you getting at with this question? Because some of the questions were a little unclear to me. And are you trying to get at this issue of and that's what I was thinking about as I was answering the questions, because maybe we do it a little bit differently at Mayo versus other places. Like, are you asking if we scan our slides, or do we have the ability, or are you asking, do we have a server that would have the ability to share images?
Good point. Yeah. So maybe that's why, this question got one of the highest ratings, as far as like a question we should have. But even this is not perfect, like you say. So, and that's the thing about building these surveys is like, I think basically I copied the survey we had that's kind of published in our past paper, but, it's not perfect. I agree. And thanks for that response. We'll try to I'll try to write it better for the general audience. Even though our general audience survey was kind of like this last time, but maybe we
Yeah.
can actually drop one of the questions, because like you say, it's kind of one coming up is a little bit like redundant and kind of not necessary. Um, this question was, what scanner do you use? And so one of the problems with this question is like, I can make like multiple choice, but the problem is that that becomes like limiting. But then this becomes almost too granular. And so I can go in and clean this up. But as you can see, like Leica gets put into multiple categories. So that's a little bit tough. This got a higher rating than the question about, do you have a server, which is actually interesting and may go to the point of like that prior question, your point of it not being a very good question. Maybe this question is actually a better question. Like, what scanner do you use? That's pretty concrete, but like it may not be a perfect question. Like, yeah.
And then, Brad, and I forget how it was, but do you want to list all the options or
Yeah.
categories of options and say choose all, because some places may have more than others? And then also, I don't know, is this only applying to light microscopy too?
Okay,
But
yeah,
anyway, you may want to have like select all,
right.
like a multiple choice, but you can select, I don't know.
I
I
may
haven't finished my coffee this morning or whatever it's called, to have multiple answer options.
Yeah, that's a great point. So I did leave it text only.
Oh, okay. Thanks.
And that's not, I agree with you and that's not perfect. There is a possibility of a check box. And I do have that for some questions, like this one right here, for example.
Mhm.
And so when we come to this one, you'll see. So I guess I could make the scanner this way. When you click other, I think you do get the option. Actually, I'm not sure, but I may but anyway, like yeah, I can make it a radio button question, but then that becomes a little bit limiting too. You know what I mean? So I'm not sure, but it is interesting that this question got a better like a higher rating than just the question that you said wasn't perfect, which I agree with you. So we need to keep this question. It got almost a perfect like rating, but like it could be refined possibly. So I'll see how that goes. Um, so uh so what software is used on the server? Again, this becomes a complicated thing, and there's probably even more software options than scanner options, I think. You know what I mean? So it's almost impossible to make this a radio button, like, or a checkbox question. But
So,
yeah, Dr. Tomaszewski, hi,
yeah,
thanks
yeah.
for joining.
Hi.
Maybe
Sorry.
you can help us here. Help us here. I'd love your advice.
Well, yeah, I think you have to sort of separate out what Lynn was getting at, which is the image server, the PACS, if you're going to use that, or a vendor neutral archive software, which
Yeah, yeah.
is how you exchange your images, share them, export them, or are you talking about actually the software that drives the scanner? And I'm much less interested in the software that drives the scanner. I'm much more interested in the PACS or VNA software, because that's how you're going to operate. So there are only a few companies out there. Sectra is one of them, and Apollo is another one, and a few others. And then there's these softwares that cross over to the radiology area very, uh, you know, they're integrated, so they're vendor neutral archives. Like Fuji is a big one there. So I think what we should do is actually name those and have people check them. That would be very, rather than kind of give it open ended, since there's a limited environment of that, I think we should put that down that way. And the other stuff, I, I don't know how useful it is. So once you know you got a scanner, well, okay, are you worried about, my AT Leica and what version it is? I don't think so. I think you're really interested in, do you have a scanner? You'd like to know a little bit about the scanner. Is it a high throughput scanner? As Lynn was saying, is it something that can give you a Z-stack? Is it something that could do fluorescence? I mean, that's an unusual scanner in the market. For the research world, you see them. In a clinical world, not so much, but it's coming. So if you really want to know, in particular for renal pathology, if you really want to know the what you can do with whole site imaging writ large, you want it to be broader in terms of functionality, but I don't know that you care so much about the make, the model, and the software that's driving it.
Okay. Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's a great. Thank you so much for your feedback. I'm so glad you joined today because you have a lot of expertise in this area. So, I can make it, like I said, there is the option of making it, where they can even, because someone may have multiple of them.
Right,
So
exactly.
I can make it like a checkbox like this, because this allows you to check multiple. And I even think I have this, other, where they click other and it gives them a text box there.
Yeah, that'd be
So
perfect.
maybe that's
Yeah,
what I need to do. Yeah, maybe
yeah, yeah.
change it to that type, because
What
I'd added that later.
I mean, I'd put the FDA approved scanners up top as checkboxes, and then I'd put the others as others. That would limit. It would get you what you really need to know if you're talking about this as a clinical patient care use. Then that's what you want to know. If the purpose of the study is what are people doing for research, that's a whole other study.
yeah, yeah, I think we are a little bit, it's a little bit. I think we're still trying to figure out what our goal is here too. Um, so so we have the software question, and then we actually ask what image formats are supported. And again, this is a text box also. But we could make this, or, you know, what we're now trying to figure out is a general audience survey. And for this was lower than the prior two questions so far. So I don't know if, and in a sense, like you said, the PACS kind of gives you, um, controls what the format is anyway. So I'm not sure if this could be redundant even. I'm not sure. What if we,
Yeah, and you also need DICOM in there no matter what.
yeah, yeah.
So that Yeah, if you choose the PAX or VNA, then this would come with it. So you don't actually have to reinvent that.
Yeah.
Um,
So maybe that's what we should do I possibly could drop this one for a general audience survey.
but it
Um,
kind of does get at what are you trying to do with this survey? Are you trying to
yeah,
understand the universe of scanning, which has,
yeah,
lots of research applications? Like in our shop, we have all of this on the research side and we have none of it on the clinical side. So it's really dichotomous, it comes to who funds what. And so, we can do cytology and fluorescence scanning and and DICOM and everything on the research side, but we can't do any of it on the clinical side really. Well, almost any of it. So I somehow or another there needs to be a preamble of what you're trying to get at from this survey. If you don't want to confuse the two because we've been in for a long time in this world of research whole slide imaging for darn near 20 years now, but the clinical applications are just now kind of coming to the fore.
yeah. Okay. Yeah. So that's a great feedback. And so yeah, I think like you say, maybe we need to take a step back and actually ask, what our goal is for this survey. So the next question was, if you have computerized server that can manage whole slide images, can the server de-identify information? So this was kind of getting to the research question, like and so, the majority did say yes. Like I said, I need to clean this up a little bit, but it's about half and half. And people, like you say, and several people have said to me, even in this expert group of the digital pathology working group, not everyone knew how to answer some of these questions. Like I even didn't know how to answer, even though I made the survey, I didn't, I'm not providing the best answers just myself. I would need to go talk to our IT people for some, as you'll see, for some of the questions. But we're just trying to get at kind of some of it's kind of approximate we're trying to get.
Well, this is a good question in
Yeah.
that it actually gets to this functionality question. So John Sinnard wrote about this in the late aughts, and it was about moving whole slide image pixels from a clinical identified environment to a either de-identified or brokered anonymized environment in a research operation. So it really begs the issue about having two faces to your image server and passing one to the other. As I mentioned, if we have it on the research side, so what we literally have to do is take the slide, mask it over, sneaker net it over to the research lab, scan it, you know, delink it, and then send it back and pull the mask off. That's literally what we have to do. So it's a uh, sort of a materials management way of dealing with the fact that you only have part of the electronic solution in place.
Yeah. So, yeah, I totally agree with your feedback there too. Like, and we're a lot very similar to that. And our server and slide scanning access is kind of like wax and wane, unfortunately. Like I used to actually have my own scanner, but then like the grant ran out and you run out of
Yeah,
the
exactly. Yeah, well,
funding.
we have.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
it's exactly right. But this is a good question because it sets the stage for if you answer, I have no access to this, that it tells you haven't made the connection, and that's a really important piece of information, particularly in nephropathology, where we're really pushing the bubble on trying to adopt all these algorithms and all this stuff, and we will be a bit ahead of the curve, I think. But it's it's an infrastructure issue. It's sort of like, where do you charge your EV?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And that, yeah, even that waxes and wanes, and some of the like charging stations go out or whatever, and yeah, you're stuck. So yeah, so yeah, and then so the next question was, if you have a computerized server that can manage the whole slide images, does the server allow the installation of customized and commercial algorithms? Um, Again, this is not a perfect question, but I think like you're saying, we're trying to get at if Banff released an algorithm, like a customized algorithm, could that be put on the server? And I'll go ahead and just go ahead and tell you like a, a case study here. Like we have Sectra for our packs. And we have a researcher who's developed this like algorithm to identify Helicobacter pylori. And Sectra is supposed to allow um, you know, customized algorithms on there. But then you run into the issues of your IT department isn't really sure they want to let that on there because there may be a Trojan horse in there or whatever. So like it's a tough question, and I realize it's a hard question to answer. Um, Maybe we even need to have another um, you know category there. And this did get a pretty good rating. So for a general audience, I think we need to retain something like this, but maybe we need to have another option in there of um, sort of maybe. or
Sorry, yeah, so sorry to keep interrupting here, but there's two issues behind this. One is security, as you mentioned, which, depending upon where you're at, can be enormous. Um, and then the second is compliance. So the whole LDT thing raises its specter here, and they're linked, but they are also separable. At least the feds would think so.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that what we want to know is exactly what you said, Brad, that if there is some Banff algorithm, to detect whatever transcycleropathy or something, would people at other different institutions be able to use such a thing? We also use Sectra, and I think the major issue would be IG, and because Mayo especially is, so I don't know, protective of everything. And but I think also like for what am I trying to say? It would be possible to have customized or commercial algorithms, but it might not be within that system. Like you might have to export the files and then use it on that. So I don't know if you want to modify the question like that somehow. So maybe would you have the option, you could say, does the server allow installation, or would you have the option of, exporting the files to use these algorithms or something like that? And then the question is, if this is for some clinical use or research use, for us to have the slide or the scan slides exported, it's a big pain. And you have to get certain people to do it. They have to have time, they have to have time, and maybe it takes a couple weeks. It's not going to be something like you use on your case today. Does this patient have TG or something? So I don't know if there's a way to modify the question. And again, are we trying to ask, a clinical question, what's our practice like now, versus developing algorithms and, validating something like for transcycleropathy, I keep saying, just try to clarify that question. So I think, I thought I had trouble answering a lot of these, as I said, but just because it wasn't really clear, and I'm trying to think of the different scenarios in which we would be able to use these. But I also, it comes down to, just the variety of practices, I think, at different institutions and different options, and kind of the different practices between regular clinical practice and then research practice, where you'd have probably more things available in a research setting.
Yeah, yeah, those are great points. And yeah, I'm thinking more and more now. Obviously, this is like radio program I used to watch. I think it was Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me or something like that. And they said
Yeah.
poorly worded questions are par for the course. And I think unfortunately that's what this is. And I think we're going to have to make it, especially if it goes to a general audience. And maybe we need to ask the question again, like what we want to know as far as the digital pathology working group, um, from the general audience. So if you have that a survey like that, does it allow correction or standardization of staining variability and other variables in the images from multiple laboratories? So this didn't receive the greatest rating, uh, and the majority of people said no. And I'm thinking, this is more of a research thing anyway. Um, and obviously, from the general audience, we may want to find out about research. I think from the general audience, um, like we did before, this same survey basically went to a general audience and was published in our prior paper. And we had a lot more participants, obviously, but it wasn't, um, you know, I think even then we weren't clear whether we were talking about clinical or research. Um, but I think one thing interesting about the results we had before and the results we could have in a general audience survey again is to see how some of these things have changed over time. Even though it's not a perfect question, it might be interesting to say, hey, back in before COVID, which is actually when our survey was conducted, a lot of things have changed during COVID and after. So it might be interesting to retain some of these questions just for the purposes of seeing how some things have changed. But this question may be, and for a general audience, I don't want a survey to be too complicated. You know what I mean? Like, so I think we do want to kind of determine what we really want to answer. So this is getting to be pretty much in the weeds here. If you have a computerized survey that can manage whole site images, um, what's the amount of survey and storage available? So, you know, and I just like, I left this pretty open and it's a free text question. Uh, but again, though, I think it could be interesting to see if there's any change over time since the prior survey. But I think this question, again, didn't get as high a rating as the other questions. But for a general audience survey, maybe this would not be the greatest question. Do y'all have any thoughts on that?
Well, can I just ask, because I was kind of surprised, and I don't know if they still do this, but at Arcana, I remember they were scanning slides and then they keep them for 2 weeks and then throw away those files because they didn't have the storage.
Wow.
So, and I just
That's
thought,
a problem.
and that the purpose of having the scan slides was to allow some of their pathologists were working remotely and they scan light microscopy and immunofluorescence. But especially for a place like Arcana, they have so many cases. Like, what a great resource they would have. Now, I don't know if they're still doing that, but I was really surprised that they just threw them away, especially since storage is so cheap. But I think that might be another question that we're kind of trying to get at, like, do you save the scanned files indefinitely or something like that, or are they kept for a limited period of time? Because I think what we want to know is what are the resources available? Isn't that really what we want to know?
Yeah, that's partly,
You
yeah,
know,
yeah,
I'll tell you about if this is New York State, boy, they're going to want you to keep them for 20 years, just like the glass, because they're going to say, oh, you made a diagnosis off of that material. And then it turns into a med mal
Interesting.
issue too. I mean, where did you you know, where doctor, how did you make your diagnosis? And then, I think all this stuff comes to the fore. I get it. If you're a big operation, not just Gen Surge Path, you're talking about petabytes a year. So it's gonna mount up in terms of cost. But I just think it's a bad idea to have whole side images that you're using for clinical purposes and then to discard them. It almost seems like, what are you hiding? Why did you throw that away? Boy, that's
Mm.
just a setup. I'd love to hear Jane Pine Woods talk about this.
Yeah, interesting. I didn't think about it that way, but I had a case the other day, lupus nephritis, and like I saw endocapillary hypercellularity on the glass slides, and I couldn't see it, and I couldn't see the
There you go. There you go. Yeah, yeah,
on
yeah.
the
They're
slide. And
different.
I thought, I'm so glad I didn't sign this out. I wanted to review the glass slides.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
wow.
yeah, yeah. This is, the resolution of these things is just not the same as the optical
Yeah.
resolution. You don't know, most of us don't actually know what the software is doing in terms of what's presenting to us. So, if it's a lower resolution issue, if it's counting the numbers of glomeruli, it's actually better than us, but sort of trying to line slides up. On the other hand, if it's endocapillary proliferation, I could easily see it being a problem. So I think we need to tread lightly here. Collect the data is fine, but boy, I would not want to get in the middle of this kind of medical legal issue.
Yeah, yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, I agree. Some things are so hard to see. And I know like Colvin and I think Michael Mingle and was it Mark Haas, and there's a lot of other people on this paper on transplant glomerulopathy. And with for that they scan with this special oil immersion scanner, which is not really
Mhm.
practical to use clinically, but I don't think for because I don't think the scanner is really slow and you have to have
Yeah,
someone.
we have one of these things, and it's
Yeah.
going to take you about 25 to 45 minutes to scan a slide at
Yeah.
oil.
Well, oh, do you want to ask a question about
I did not
but
ask.
I forgot. I thought, yeah, but considering that paper, I don't, was it a free text? Sorry, I forgot. But yeah, thinking of that paper, do you want to say is that, available and
Yeah.
practical or something like that? I'm not sure
I
if
have
you
not got, yeah, that's a great question. I didn't ask that specifically, but someone may have mentioned it in the comments, although, and even if they didn't, we could think about having it. I don't know if it'd be, again, I don't know if it would be a general audience survey. So here's another one. This is one that I think actually I remember when we were building the prior survey that was published. Um, Kim actually, I think, was the one who asked me to put this question in, and it's about the bandwidth of this internet.
Yeah.
Again, I think this is a tough one to answer though, because um, even I didn't go to the effort of asking our IT people the proper question. I mean, most of the people said unknown, but then some people who are probably some of the most IT savvy in our group did answer it somewhat. But let's see what the rating was as far as making this a general audience question. It was pretty low still. I mean, people tend to be nice, but this is lower than most of our questions, but it is still an interesting question. And again, this could have changed since COVID.
and
Uh,
it changes depending on, this question assumes that you are only reviewing slides from from one place. Like I review slides from home. I review, I'm home now. I'm reviewing slides. I review slides from my office where, or if I'm in Ecuador or whatever, I can review scan slides there. So it's going to be different. So that's why it wasn't easy to answer this question
yeah,
for
yeah,
me.
I think you're right. Yeah, yeah. Somebody else want to say something? Yeah. Um, yeah, so yeah, this was not a perfect question either. So it needs some work. So so then we got to the costs of the image bank. And again, this is a variety of again, this one got a pretty good rating. Um, there was a variety of answers here, and actually, some people said they do not know. Um, and we actually asked the question of this is the initial amount, and then we asked about a maintenance charges, like to continue it, like to continue to manage it. Uh, and most people said, I don't know there. So these are tough questions. And then one of the biggest things we got to was, do you have an existing whole slide image repository of transplant specimen? This got a really good rating. And most people said yes. Um, and then we tried to get to uh, uh, the answers of how many specimens do you have? Um, and this was, and actually for this, I think I was the most like stringent. I kept this, they had to give it a number basically. So I think this is kind of a useful data, that maybe even some of the most useful data. Um, and because this is the Banff Digital Pathology Working Group, we did ask the question of like different organs too. So, and as you can see, not as many people had lung and liver and other things. Um, but I think some of these may be something that we want to keep. Um, Again, this got a pretty good rating. So something like that is, and so, and that goes to point, that's more research possibly. So maybe, that maybe we need to keep it at that. This is another one, a kind of a tough one, is what's your format. So again, that's not as good. And then we got to the resolution. We didn't ask about oil immersion in particular, but we did ask about resolution, um, uh, which actually I realized this is not a perfect question too, because someone actually gave a response of, is this what you meant by resolution 40x, which in a sense is not really, I know this is actually the more accurate answer, but I know I'm not even sure I gave the most accurate answer, to tell you the truth. So yeah, maybe we need to retain something like that, but maybe a little bit, um, maybe a little bit more, um, give it a little bit more nuance possibly there.
Yeah,
So
I think for a general audience, like they think, oh, are the scan slide at 20x, 40x, or 100x or 100x under oil or something like that. I mean, I think that's generally what we know. And I had asked, that was me. I asked, is that what you mean? I
yeah.
think that was me.
Yeah. So that's a tough question. So maybe we need to refine that question and be a little bit more specific. Because it got an okay rating. This one was the radio button type that actually allowed them to, select radio button. I mean, actually checkbox. So they could select multiple things with this. And they could even provide a text response. So maybe we need to change some of our questions, like the scanner question, to a type of question like this, that actually allows them to, and it's kind of nice the way it collects the data. But basically, as you can see in the spreadsheet, it collects the data, as you can see, um, uh, like this is the stain question. So, yeah, uh, actually here. Well, it's in there. But we'll pin it down. But as you can see, we got some pretty good questions here. Obviously, that's not surprising. H&E is the most, but then PAS is obviously the next most common. But we'll get
So
into
Brad, sorry, is this in your repository, like your scanned slides repository, or like are these stains available at your institution or what? Because like C4D immunofluorescence, well, we don't scan those. We have an IF slide scanner that we were testing, but we don't have those, but we have photographs of C4D immunofluorescence, of course, just for documentation purposes. But maybe by repository, maybe just clarify in your, scanned slide repository, and then make sure that it's a whole slide image there.
This
And
was,
sorry, I have another meeting, so I'm going to
oh
have
yeah.
to,
Oh yeah, actually we're getting,
happy to provide my comments on other
no,
things
no.
here.
Well, this is really complicated. So we're going to have to continue this in
Yep.
about 4 weeks anyway. But I really appreciate your feedback. And, this is obviously very helpful. So we'll continue this and we'll continue to think about what our goals need to be for the general audience. And then I'll put this in a more digestible format. I'm just now getting to the comments and those are more complicated, but we'll go ahead and end it soon unless anyone has any pressing um, comments now. But we'll plan on hearing Kim in 2 weeks, and we'll pick up this discussion in 4 weeks.
Sounds good.
Yeah,
Yep.
but I really appreciate the responses of everyone, and this has been very helpful. So thank you so much, and you know, feel free to email me if you have additional comments.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank
Thanks a
you.
lot.
Happy New
Take care.
Year.
Thanks a lot. Happy New Year. Thanks a lot.
Yeah.